And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to to today's talk. Today, I have two very special guests. First of all, I want to introduce Deep Vegan. He's fairly new to the scene of controversy after a 9/11 post, and then that vegan teacher featuring it. Um,
Yeah.
but George Martin, most people already know as Carnism Debunked. He is not new to the scene of controversy. Love him or hate him, but we're happy to have him here. So thank you guys for being here. I'm kind of doing this on the fly. I did a little bit of research on this, but I thought you two were perfect for this. Deep, the reason I thought you were perfect for this is after it came to my attention, that post that you made about 9/11,
Yeah.
um, is because I may not necessarily agree with everything, but I understood where you were coming from. And I understood where it was coming from. And what I saw personally was a nice person who is a little frustrated and disappointed by the human race.
And greatly misunderstood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember 9/11. I was getting ready for work when I had somebody call me up and say, turn on the TV. And I had a lot of friends that were living in New York at the time. As a matter of fact, one of my best friends was flying into New Jersey that day. So it was a very scary time. And I wasn't vegan at the time. So, I may not necessarily agree with the sentiment of these all these people not being vegan now, but
Yeah.
I understood where you were coming
Yeah,
from.
I wasn't vegan at the time either. So
Yeah. And I know that you've gotten a lot of flack because we all do after we're featured on that vegan teacher.
yeah.
But that's okay. The trolls come with the territory. Um, but I wanted to have a thoughtful conversation about where these feelings come from.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad to have you on. Thank you so much. Um, Bo is going to be our moderator today. Thank you, Bo. And if you could do me a favor, this is going to be a respectful conversation. Just make sure I know this is a heated subject for a lot of people. Both of these subjects are very heated for a lot of people. And if they could just keep it respectful and no abuse in the comments. And maybe later on, if it is kept respectful, we can bring some people on to talk with us. All right. So, you guys, let's go ahead and get on the subject of misanthropy. Now, basically, people understand that to mean that you hate the human race. But what the definition is that you have a deep distrust in the human race. And
Distrust, dislike, hatred. Yeah.
dislike, distrust. There are many
Yeah.
different levels. Now, I found an
Yeah.
article called Philosophical Misanthropy. It was in the Philosophy Now, I believe, issue of Philosophy Now. It was very interesting, and it brought up different levels of misanthropy. And so I thought we might, talk about those and like what do we think is the root of misanthropy? What do you guys think?
Oh, there's many different, roots. It's different for each person. For me, it's, directly related to how we treat non-human animals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was the same for me. Before I went vegan, for sure, I had a very rose-tinted view of the human race.
Yeah,
Good
same here.
triumphs over evil. Most people are good, and there's a few bad apples in the world.
Yeah.
And then you go vegan, and you actually come to this horrific awakening
Yeah.
that actually the world is a very sick, disturbing, cruel, and evil place. And for me, I think what kind of woke me up to this is like, posting footage of pigs being gassed or something on an animal rights page or whatever it is. This is when I went vegan back in 2013, seeing stuff like that. And you just see these comments saying stuff like bacon and stuff like that. And it wasn't just like a few people here and there. You're talking on some posts, this was the majority of the comments. And
Yeah.
it wakes you the fuck up from your slumber, basically. And you go, shit, these people walk among me every day. People who find animal abuse funny, they think it's a joke.
Or
And
even if they don't
yeah,
in reality find it funny, they are so callous online. And I'm like, especially again, that vegan teacher, when you start getting the kids that troll, these are kids
yeah,
that
Yeah.
troll her channel, and then you get them over to yours when she features you. And they say the most callous stuff. And I'm
yeah.
just like, I don't remember being like that as a child,
No,
you know?
neither do I.
Hmm. Yeah, it's disturbing, and it's also disturbing when I know we might not have thought exactly like that as a child, bay control level, but we were non-vegans at one point, which
Sure.
shows how easy it even was for us to fall into committing evil acts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we us three here committed evil acts in the past, you know, what chance is there for the most of humanity who just really don't care about veganism and stuff? They're just going to be continuing to perpetuate these acts of injustice and violence forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see, but the difference is like when you don't know what you're doing, that's what really frustrates me. Is it's excusable if you don't know what you're doing, but when it's brought to your attention and then you just make fun of it,
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
uh,
that's the reason, like, why I feel the way I do, because I can't empathize with these people whatsoever who like fight against veganism, and when you show them how animals are treated, they're like, haha, bacon or whatever. Because like I was never like that at any point whatsoever. Like, yeah, I
yeah,
wasn't vegan because I was indoctrinated and I didn't even know what veganism was.
yeah,
But as soon as I found out how the animals are treated, and as soon as I learned what veganism was, like I didn't make fun of it for 1 second. I was like, holy shit, this is horrible, I need to change.
yeah.
So
That's exactly how I was. I was like, I
mm,
didn't kill the messenger, you
yeah,
know. I
yeah.
instead I just changed my ways, you
I
know.
yeah,
just want to, yeah. I mean, on this topic, actually, I want to sort of talk about Deep's point about the 9/11 stuff. So obviously, Deep came under controversy recently because he basically said that he doesn't really give a shit about 9/11 because these people who died were all animal abusers, right?
yeah. my
Now,
my
my
original point, I just want to point out that my original point with all of this, which people like completely missed, was not that I don't care about 9/11. Is what I use 9/11 just as an example of how all the arguments that people have against veganism and against animal rights, I just showed how I can apply all those arguments to
Mhm,
9/11, which clearly shows that all of those arguments are completely worthless,
mhm.
because if you truly believe in those arguments, then you are speaking in favor of things like 9/11.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but is it
So
your
yeah,
position that you don't care about the victims of 9/11?
yeah, I don't care about
Okay,
non-human lives in general. So yeah, that is correct.
now on that point, see, I have I guess, a more nuanced position, right? I do, while obviously all of those people were non-vegan, I
Yeah,
do care about the loss of life. And I went in 2019 when we met in New York, actually, Stacey, a few years ago, um, to Ground Zero. It was a very powerful and moving experience. And I do believe that, okay, so most of those people were non-vegans, but for the majority, I think a lot of them could just be conditioned, brainwashed, and might be good people deep down, and you might have had a chance to outreach them should they still be
yeah,
here, whatever. But so I do care about their loss of life. But with regards to the people we're talking about, the bacon trolls, the sick, really disturbed individuals who just think this is funny. Yeah, I would share your position with them. I
mm,
really don't give a fuck about them dying. In
yeah,
fact, I wish death on people who mock animal abuse, who mock animal suffering, who can look at that footage and stuff that I share on my Instagram, my Facebook, and my YouTube and just laugh at it.
yeah,
Truly, fuck those people. But I think the majority of the victims of 9/11, I think they would see stuff like that and they'd go, damn, that's disturbing. That's screwed up. And what actually
yeah,
made me slightly less misanthropic, because when I started out as a vegan, I was the biggest misanthrope in the world. But what made me slightly less misanthropic is doing street outreach events and actually see you speak to actually are disturbed by the footage that you're showing them, because the internet brings out the worst in people, right?
Yeah, and I was going to bring that point up. Do you think the internet has anything to do with feeding our misanthropy, or
It definitely
misanthropy? See, I always pronounce it wrong.
it definitely feeds it because on the internet, all the worst people are the loudest, right?
Yes.
But even with my experience in real life, doing street activism, talking to, uh, friends and family and relatives, which I had in my life, when I went vegan, like, yeah, a lot of people think like, oh, this is disturbing and whatnot. But despite the vast majority thinking that it's disturbing and it's horrible and like it shouldn't happen, the vast majority are still comfortable in continuing to cause it to happen,
Yeah, there's a
which is
lot of
kind
ups
of
and
like,
downs with doing outreach. You sometimes see that people don't
Mm.
care,
Oh
which
yeah.
can bring you down, and then you have days that you have really good cubes or something,
Hmm.
and you have really good
yeah,
outreach, and you have a little bit of hope, a little glimmer of hope, and then
yeah.
Very
you
up and
come
down.
home and get on the internet, and somebody's got to
It
ruin it.
falls
You know what I
apart.
mean?
I want to
So,
ask deeper question actually about the
Yeah,
9/11 stuff to see if there's a consistency / inconsistency
yeah,
in the
sure.
position. Now, obviously, you don't care about all the people who died in 9/11, but do you care when carnivorous animals die and omnivorous animals? Would you care if, say, when Cecil the lion was shot? Did you care about that, or when people kill wolves to turn them into Canada goose fur trims and stuff?
Yeah, I think it's cruel. And the reason I think that is because, yeah, they do hunt and,
Mhm.
kill animals.
Yeah,
But unlike us, I don't judge them for that because they are just doing what they have to do in order to survive. Like, they didn't choose to be
yeah,
born into a carnivorous body, but
no,
they only have two choices: either kill and eat other animals or starve to death. And,
yeah.
you know, we
But
can,
rather than, but would you still not just be sort of indifferent? I'm not necessarily saying, oh, you think it's a great thing or a good thing, but would you not just be indifferent to the fact that Cecil the lion was shot because you think, okay, it wasn't Cecil the lion's fault that he had to eat animals in order to survive, but
mm,
he didn't care about the animals that he ate ultimately, and him being shot is going to spare other animals from suffering.
yeah, I'm kind of like conflicted on that because, like on one hand, like the a lion has done nothing to deserve to be killed because
Mm,
they're not, because I don't hold them to the same standards as humans. We
yeah.
humans have a lot more mental capacity to make moral decisions, and we
Mm,
have the choices like they don't. So
yeah.
yeah, obviously the lion dying means that that lion can't kill other animals, but at the same time it's sad because the lion didn't deserve to die because
Yeah.
they had done
It's
nothing wrong
it's one of
according to me.
those utilitarian / deontology things, right? So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's for the when a carnivorous animal is killed, it may ease suffering for certain, like it you could say that it's good, it has a net positive on suffering or something like that. But from a deontological perspective, meaning that a rights violation is bad enough regardless of the outcome, you could say killing Cecil the lion was bad,
yeah, yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing.
So yeah, there's both sides. There are
Yeah.
good things and there are bad things.
yeah, I mean, I feel the same way too in those situations because they're not moral agents. We
Yeah,
are,
exactly.
so therefore we have a responsibility and even an obligation, I think, as human beings, that if we're going to discuss these things, to be moral about it,
Yeah.
to make the best moral decisions if we have the gall to even talk about them,
That's
you
it.
know.
Yeah,
We're meant to be like, if we're supposedly the highest species on the planet and blah blah blah.
I don't believe that.
Well, we're not, yeah, but that would mean that we're the most responsible for sourcing food without violence and making
yeah,
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 ethical decisions. If we
yeah.
have the power to do so, we should be exercising the power for good rather than bad.
Well, that's
yeah,
like I tell some of these trolls. It's like they're like, well, if a lion eats, animals eat animals, then why? It's like because if you think that you're so evolved, then you have an obligation to act like it.
yeah.
Yes.
You know?
The more
Yeah,
power
they
you
think
have, the
animals are
more.
below us, yet they're mimicking their
Yeah,
behavior. It makes no fucking sense.
yeah. So
Yeah,
you know,
that's a very strange thing. Constantly, they're like, you can't compare humans to animals, but then like one sentence later, they're like, oh, but other animals eat animals, so
I want to,
it's
sorry
very
to go
hypocritical.
back to the 9/11 point, but
Yeah,
just on that, Deep, I'm wondering if you were to go to ground zero and you were to
yeah.
see the incredible waterfall and stuff. I assume you've seen it, Stacey. You've been right to ground zero.
no,
You
no,
haven't been.
I didn't go. No,
Oh,
I've been to New York before it happened. So
yeah. Okay.
I've been to the Twin Towers, but no, I have not. Wait a
Yeah.
minute, did I go to Ground Zero? I may have had a chance to go by there at
Yeah.
one point before it was finished. I don't
Uh,
remember.
Because I was just wondering, Deep, if you were to go, do you think
Mm.
you would be moved in any way by seeing? It's an incredibly powerful experience, and I'm saying this as a misanthrope, right? But
You know
I've
what?
gone there,
I have
and
been
it's
there. I just
you have,
realized. Yes.
and it's got a massive, massive waterfall in the middle. All the
Yeah.
victims' names engraved outside it, and they put a flower on a person's name when it's their birthday. Very moving experience, and there's the 9/11 museum as well. Do you think you would be moved if you were to go to see that?
I don't know. Like to some level, I can still empathize with humans.
Yeah.
Even if I think that the world is better off without them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I would be affected very much. Sure,
And
like it's
I can kind of understand where he's coming from. I mean, I understand it. It doesn't mean necessarily I agree with it totally, but
Mm-hmm.
I can understand where you're coming from. I remember though when it was happening and watching it on TV and seeing people jump to their deaths and how horrible that was to watch.
yeah.
But I understand where you're coming from, is what I'm trying to say.
Like I
So
can
I don't
look at
make judgment
yeah.
on that because when 9/11 came around this year, I was in class and the teacher went around and asked everybody, if they remember where they were, and of course I did. But I had people in the class that were. One girl said she was 3 years old. She wasn't affected at all. And then you see these people come online, and it's just they're feigning offense. Um,
Mm,
they're just virtue signaling. They probably don't really care, or they're too young to even remember. But they're going to act like they just looking for a reason to be pissed off at you.
yeah.
So they're going to act like they're all righteous and you're a horrible person just in order for them to look better, because they probably in real life don't really care much.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas I did, but I could still understand where your sentiment came from. So, I mean, I knew it was about the animals. You were making an example out
Yeah.
of it. Um,
Yeah, do you know what was funny actually? This random Carnist troll who, Deep, I doubt you even know, but he mentioned you to me in a message he just sent me yesterday on Instagram. He was like, "Do you agree with Deep Vegan that 9/11 we shouldn't care about 9/11 because there were non-vegans?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Please tell me you have a sane position on this." And I was like, who the fuck are you to judge? Like these are Deep Vegan's thoughts, not his actions. Who are you to message me and talk about someone's position on that being insane when you literally commit the largest acts of murder and slavery and
Yeah.
oppression on the planet? Like, it's like when Gary Yourofsky said about his controversial comments, right? He said, I don't get how my thoughts are
yeah,
worse than people's actions.
Yeah.
Deep can fly the
I'm the
fucking
same way.
plane.
See that I'm the same way. I always look at people like obviously Deep didn't have anything to do with 9/11. He did not commit the crime.
Yeah.
So I totally respect that he stood behind it, and I will stand up for his right to say how he feels. But he didn't do anything. But these
Yeah. Yeah.
people who are feigning like being so uh, that they're so upset by it, they were actually going out and paying for horrible things to
Yeah.
happen every day.
Yeah.
People focus a lot on the fact that I just use 9/11 as an example. Like
Yeah, they
I'm
do.
saying the whole 9/11 thing was a good thing. Like I am just focusing on all the non-vegan lives that were lost,
Yeah.
basically, because I'm assuming that most of them were non-vegan.
Yeah. Now, here's probably the most controversial part of your view, though, right? What do you make? Because maybe we could see a link here between these specific victims and animals with regards to moral agency. What about the children who were murdered in 9/11? Do you
Yeah,
surely?
those were I mean, children are as I see it, are basically the only innocent humans and beings in existence. So like if we take, you know, a very young child who has like very primitive mental functioning still, like I hold them on the same moral level as I hold any other animal,
Yeah.
because they are still innocent.
So you do see it as a tragedy with regards to the children, but not the adults, would I be
Yeah,
correct?
with regards to the children, maybe the animals who died, maybe the people who weren't actually bad people, you
Yeah.
know, because some of them, as you said, might have been open to change. I'm just working under the assumption that I think most of them weren't, because that is my experience.
Yeah,
So,
for
yeah.
sure. 99% of the people on those planes would not have gone vegan.
Yeah.
That's the disturbing reality.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say, though, of course, there were people who could care, and there were children and stuff on those planes. Either way, you know, as I said, when I visited the thing, I did find it a very powerful experience, and I do have the sympathy, including for the non-vegans who were killed that day. But I completely, as a misanthrope and as a vegan, understand your views on this, which is why I don't condemn them, because again, your thoughts are just not the same as people's actions. People who pay for murder and rape and slavery, they have nothing to judge you for on this.
Yeah.
And it's like I can still empathize with human. Like if I watch a video about 9/11, and you know the people who were in a phone conversation with their loved ones, you know, right before, and then the building collapses and you can just hear them screaming, and you know, people jumping out the window and all that. Like if I just look at that isolated, yeah, it's horrible, and yeah, like nobody would want to go through that. I'm not saying it is good that they, you know, suffered or whatever. You know,
And so that brings me to a point I wanted to make. We weren't born being misanthropists.
No.
You know, you know, this was created by the society that we live in. And you know, but when did it start? Did it start? Do you think it start? Is this a vegan? Is this even a vegan problem? Uh, is it more more misanthropists in the vegan movement than in general, or is it even a vegan problem? Or
I
do you think
think
our veganism came out of it, or is affected by it? Does it have anything to do with dystopia?
well, definitely veganism wasn't a result of misanthropy, because before I went vegan, I was not misanthropic. I did care about humans,
Yeah.
and I did, you know, just like George said, I did think, you know, the majority of humans were good people, and that, you know, the bad people are just like a minority. Until I went vegan and I started trying to convince people, because you know, when I went vegan, I was like, oh, holy shit, I learned this, you know, that I didn't know before, and I'm gonna go vegan. So now I'm just gonna, you know, tell this to other people, and they will go vegan as well, because obviously most people will.
Yeah.
You know, since I believe, you know, people are good people. But then when I actually tried, you know, I came to the realization that no, people are not as good as I thought they were.
Yeah, I
So,
think we've all had that disappointment. I think we have.
and that's when, you know, the hatred for humans started. You know.
Yeah, I think the vast majority of non-vegans aren't misanthropes. I think they find a lot of vegans like us a little crazy, because we are misanthropes.
And why is that? Do you think it's because like we're expected to have love and compassion for everybody? I mean,
I
we're
think
still human beings. So, I mean, we fight with these feelings. It's not like we volunteered to feel this way. But it's so contentious with the subject is so contentious within the vegan movement. And I think it has to do with we're expected to love everyone because we're vegan, you
Yeah.
know? And that's why I often tell people that compassion has nothing to do with it. It's justice, you know?
Yeah, 100%. It's very convenient that for non-vegans, isn't it? When they can just come in, hey, aren't you supposed to be about peace and love and
Somebody
stuff?
did that under Deep Vegan's that vegan teacher's video about Deep Vegan, and I said I like this guy, and I got all the questions like you did, George. I got all the like, do you agree with him? Do you support this? Just because all I said was I like this guy.
Yeah.
And somebody did ask me. They said I thought vegans were supposed to be for peace and love, and I said then what are non-vegans for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great point.
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
shouldn't that make them examine? Yeah, exactly. Shouldn't that make them examine their own fucking conscience if they're
Yeah.
saying that?
So anyway, so it as far as it being related to Vystopia, I think it does feed a lot of Vystopia, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody doesn't know what Vystopia is, it was brought up by what's her name, the doctor that brought up
Claire Mann.
huh?
Claire Mann, the
Claire Mann.
psychologist.
I wanted to say Melanie Joy, and I knew that wasn't it. But yeah, Claire Mann. She wrote a book called Vystopia, and it's about being vegan in a non-vegan world, and the mental toll it takes on us, and feelings of isolation and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that book that I did a YouTube video on recently, A Declaration of War. So
That
for
was a
anyone,
great video, by the way.
thank you very much. Yeah. So for anyone who's wondering what that book was about, who's watching now, it was basically a 1991 manifesto, essentially, that would seem to condone killing humans in the name of animal liberation. So it's considered, I guess, to be like an animal rights terror manual almost.
Yeah.
Now
That would be the extreme of
yeah.
misanthrope.
Now that book is riddled with misanthropy. I think it's in chapter 1 or 2. It just sort of starts, from the off. It just says liberators. That's the people who perpetuate the violent acts. Have given up on humans, and it talks about throughout the book about how it's no good trying to educate people. It builds this argument that only certain small groups of the human population will go vegan. Most people just do not have the capacity to change or care. And so what's a more effective tactic is actually to make people fear what will happen to them if they continue to eat animal products. So that was a huge case of misanthropy, this book, and it talks throughout about how humans are just basically hopeless. So that was a very interesting book for anyone who's interested. You can find it online. It's not illegal to purchase a copy either. I actually purchased a copy off Amazon. So it is somehow legal, this book, very controversial book, but it's a very interesting
I could not find it on Amazon. I don't know if it's just the US that it's not available, or I just it just wasn't showing up for me. But that brings me to this article and telling about like the different levels, because obviously that's an extreme level of misanthropy. But there's other levels. There's levels of misanthropy where they talk about people who want to hide, because they're so tired of the human race that they want to go off like a Buddhist monk and live, on a mountain by themselves. Um, and then there's other misanthropists that have contempt for that. They believe that you have to fight and you have to try to change. I guess it would be more of an optimistic misanthropist in that they think that maybe we could change the human race. I think that there's a lot of times that I, in one day alone, will go from one level to the next, several different levels depending on the situation. And I think most of us would. What do you think?
I think, like, most of the time, I just see humanity as hopeless because, from my experience,
I have more days like
the
that.
vast majority of people are incapable of change. They are incapable of
But what do you think drives us to continue to try? I mean, like
because
going out on the street and doing outreach.
that is the only choice we have if we want
Is
to
that
make
our
the
way
world
of
better.
coping?
No matter how hopeless it seems, if we stop trying, then it's going to be hopeless forever. Like, it's the only choice you have. Either
Do you
fight or
think
give
that
up.
it's our way of coping as well to just look for that glimmer of hope?
I
don't think. Maybe it is somewhat of a coping mechanism, but I've never seen it as that. If anything, it often gets me down, actually, because I have a lot of dead end conversations with non-vegans on the street. So it wouldn't work if I'm doing it as a coping mechanism. It's not working. I think there is the thing is, I think we do it because we realize that if the world is going to go vegan, it's going to be a very, very slow and gradual process, and that it's just going to steadily climb by 1%, maybe every 100 years or something. You know, hopefully it'll be quicker than that.
No.
But, you know, Deep said a moment ago that it's just hopeless, whatever. But I do have faith that every developed country in the world will one day be vegan, because once people are born into a system where animal murder isn't normalized, I think it will be thought of as bad. I think the reason people are
we just
puppets,
have to get
right?
to that point first. That's the problem.
Yes, and it'll be very, very slow.
Yeah.
But once we get, if we were born into a world where animal murder was considered by the system to be immoral and illegal, people are unthinking, brainwashed robots and puppets, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is just based on that, because society normalizes it. Oh, the politicians say it's okay, therefore it's okay. And this is how oppression happens. This is how the Holocaust happened in Germany. People see the authority as the truth rather than the truth as the authority. So I think the system does have a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Because if like you said, people are mindless robots or whatever, they just don't do what they have been taught to believe. Because if we lived in a vegan society where everyone was taught that, you know, animals deserve the same amount of respect as everyone else, then the majority would think that, you know, what we do to animals is just as bad, if not, you know, much worse than 9/11, for example, or anything else. It's just that once they have been indoctrinated into the system we are currently in, it is very hard to change them.
So that brings me to the subject of anti-natalism. And that is, does that naturally follow misanthropy? Does it naturally follow? Do we believe that children are the future and that we can even see a future where these things are going to change? Do we believe that they can?
So the thing is, some people aren't anti-natalists for the misanthropic reasons. Some people are actually anti-natalists because they deeply care about humans and they don't want more humans to suffer. So David Benatar, but I take both positions.
I just read that article.
I take both as well.
So Benatar describes sort of two reasons for anti-natalism. There's the misanthropic arguments, which is that more humans equals more humans doing evil fucking shit and animal suffering, and humans suck, so why the fuck are we pumping them out? And then the altruistic argument, which is that it's unfair to inflict suffering on a human being by bringing them into this cruel world. And I take both sides.
I do too.
That. Yeah,
I do too. Yeah, I find that I do too. And you know, I was actually an anti-natalist. I became an anti-natalist well before I became a vegan.
Wow.
When I was really young, you know, little girl having all the thoughts of when I'm getting married and how many kids I'm going to have. I was like, I'm going to have 5 kids. I had their names picked out and all that.
Yeah.
And as I got into my 20s and started having bad relationships, I was like, maybe 1 kid, maybe I'll have 1 kid. And then I was like, even if I'm not married, maybe I at least want to have 1. And then I was just like, no, what am I doing? Then I started having friends having kids, and I saw that it didn't make their lives better. Some of these people, I think, were having kids. Well, I think most people do it for all the wrong reasons. And that was either to make their mental health better. They thought it was something that was going to bring them out of their depression or make their lives a fairy tale or make them important. And I think it's all the wrong reasons. And when I tell people that I'm an anti-natalist, another contentious subject, people take it quite personally. And it's not personal. It's not personal because I happen to love my friends' kids. You know, I love them. I don't hate children, though I do love the child catcher from Chee Chee Bang Bang. But,
yeah, I also have a weird thing with this. So my friends know my anti-natalist views to the extent that when they have kids, they don't get a congratulations from me. And I think that they do take that personally, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean I have any hatred for their kid or everything. I think their kids are lovely. They're great. But at the same time, you're not going to get a congratulations from me if you have a kid, because it would say, I don't want to lie to my friends and just
I'm the same way.
You know,
I can't do it because it's like congratulations, you had sex 9 months ago. What am I supposed to?
Yeah.
You trying to show off everybody that you had sex? I don't understand why you had to have a kid. It's and it's not personal. I really,
Yeah.
I
Well, no
just
one has kids for altruistic reasons. It's
yeah,
what you said a
No,
moment ago.
there's
Show off. Kids are essentially people's trophies.
yeah,
They do it for selfish reasons, right?
yeah,
Now, this isn't to profess hatred to anyone watching who's a parent. Anti-natalism for me is not about hating on people who've had kids. It's about saying, guys, I don't think this is a good idea going forward. And many anti-natalists I know are parents themselves,
yeah.
and they say,
They decide to become, to not have any more children.
yeah, and they say it was a selfish decision I made to procreate, and I don't think it was the right thing for me to do. And going forward, I do advocate that, guys, we should consider adoption instead of procreation.
Exactly. I
yeah.
think there's just so many children out there that need homes. That why is it so incredibly important to have someone that looks like you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so egotistical. It's like I see
Yeah.
people say this stuff that's like, oh, don't tell me what to do, blah blah. I want a little version of me. I don't want to adopt. And I say to them back,
That's like
well,
saying you want a purebred dog.
yeah. And I say to them, we'll build a fucking statue of yourself then. So you don't need to create like a living replica of you.
Yeah, and I don't harbor any hatred towards people who have had children, or my friends that have had children, or their children.
Yeah.
I'll love their children, but it's just I don't see a bright future, and that is just realistic for me. For me, is that I worry about their suffering. All life is
Yeah.
suffering, and also we, no matter what, even as vegans, cause suffering to others. And we know that.
Yeah,
And
vegans suck as well, man.
yeah,
Like it's
and there's no guarantee. And I love the people that are bringing up their children vegan. That's fabulous. But there's
Yeah.
no guarantee that they're going to save the world or even that they're going to stay vegan.
Yeah, here's the problem with vegan procreation over adopt. I'd say if you adopt and your kid grows up to become a bacon troll, at least you can say it wasn't really your fault. You tried. You didn't make that difference.
Wasn't my genes.
Yeah, exactly. But if you procreate and your kid becomes a bacon troll, you've undone your own veganism.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Jeffrey Dahmer's parents. Can you imagine what they went through?
Like let's imagine you're a vegan and then you raise a kid your own, and they decide they don't want to be vegan anymore, and they decide that they also want to continue procreating, and maybe their kids will continue to do the same. Then all suffering beyond that point is caused by the one who decided to breed in the first place. Like all those animals that were forced to suffer because of those people.
And I find it ironic because I think that we as vegans actually care about their children, whether we're anti-natalists or not, care more about their children's future than they do.
Yeah, because that's another, because there's several reasons I'm an anti-natalist. It's because more humans equals more suffering because humans are horrible, and because the one being born can't consent to it. Like I am not thankful for being born. I wish I hadn't been born, which is a big reason why I wouldn't force it upon anyone else. No, I lost my train of thought. There was something I was about to say.
Do your parents? Can I just ask you a question while you've lost that train of thought? Do your parents know about these views that you wish you were never born?
Yep.
How did they respond to that?
Yeah, my mom, she understands. So my mom is a very open-minded person. I did convince her to go vegan. She is vegan, and I spent a lot of time with her. But yeah, she just accepts it, and she doesn't argue against it. She doesn't necessarily feel the same, but she understands that I have all my points are valid, and so
yeah.
Now I want to highlight something that Bo said here, my moderator. She said, then again, we get into another issue. Non-vegans are having way more kids than we do. Not that it would make me want to have kids, though. See, but that's the thing. I don't think that this is a contest. Do we need to have more kids? Because I've heard people of certain races say, well, this other race is having more kids than we are. Is it a contest to have more kids?
We shouldn't be using children as pawns in a political game.
No,
we shouldn't be pushing people into existence when there are already people in existence we can A, adopt, or B, make vegan. Like, we shouldn't force someone into existence and then go, yeah, the reason that I birthed you is because I want a vegan world. So I'm just going to sort of shove you into this cruel world. And
they're just
they're
just creating
rebel, no matter
soldiers
how,
basically to fight their war. Like.
Yeah, and no matter how close you are to your kids, what a great relationship you have with your children, all children are guaranteed to rebel and go through a hateful streak when they're about 12, 13. They're going to hate your guts.
This is another delusion people have. I don't get why people are like, my child will do this, and oh, I'm vegan, so my child will grow up. You know, there's that page, Vegan Army Fails, and that's based on the quote. It's a page that
I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's a vegan anti-natalist page that showcases people who have tried to create a compassionate vegan army and have utterly failed. So it will just screenshot people like, my kid came home from school and said, Mummy, I want to eat what the other kids eat. What do I do? This is horrible. And it just screenshots stuff like that to show people that it's like, you're rolling a fucking dice. You're gambling. You have no idea if your kid's going to go up and grow and into a
or
vegan
if they'll become resentful that they got made fun of growing up.
And the odds aren't really in your favor, because like you're bringing a child up, you're the one telling them they should respect animals, while everyone they hang out with is telling them that they should harm animals. So like obviously they're gonna question.
Can be really mean. I'm sorry, I got just that's another thing. It's like you know, I was a kid, so I know how mean they can be. We were all kids. We know how callous children can be. And again, all you got to do is look at the trolls on that vegan teachers channel.
You know,
they're all kids saying these horrible things.
And you know, another argument I hate for procreation is when people say, oh, the reason I want to procreate rather than adopt is because children, right, they share my genes, and they'll have like the same thoughts as me, and like they inherit my intelligence and my personality. What fucking planet are you living on? We're nothing like
There's
our
no
parents.
guarantee of that.
We're nothing like our parents.
No.
Like I don't get this argument.
And again, it goes back to kind of like buying a purebred dog. It's like, if you want somebody exactly like your dog, don't breed your dog, breed your parents.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Like I see anti-natalism as a logical extension of veganism, because the arguments and the counter arguments seem to match. Like what you're saying about, you know, adopt, don't shop. There's adopt, don't pop as well, and you know, people, the arguments.
I wanted to get a T-shirt that says "spay and neuter," and on the back, your children.
I have two anti-natalist shirts. One is like adopting overbreeding, and it includes humans and non-humans in it, and another one that says "Save the Earth, don't give birth." So.
Forgive me, guys. I have allergies really bad, so.
Rebecca Brooks has made an interesting comment here in the comment section, just saying, I always wonder if my real siblings are vegans. So she doesn't know her siblings because she's just saying she was adopted. So that's definitely an interesting take. And I wonder if the thing is though, like, again, like we're nothing like my brother is nothing like me. We're opposites. And he, I promise, will never, ever be vegan.
It's the same with my sister. Like, she's the opposite of me. She is very egocentric. She only cares about herself. So, and I'm, you know, on the other end.
So I think this was Leon talking to Bo about her thing about they're having more children than we are. I'm actually trying to how do I take that off? I'm learning, guys. I'm trying to scroll up and I don't know how to scroll up.
Yeah, because kids want to fit in, right? So if you're telling them to be vegan, but all their friends and everyone is telling them to eat animals, and you know they're probably making fun of them for being vegan, and like most people are gonna, you know, budge to that. They're gonna give in to the pressure, because most people aren't as strong-willed, so they just hold on to their ethics no matter what. People would be like, no, I don't want to be treated this way. I want to fit in. I want to be like the rest. So they're just gonna do what everyone else is doing.
Okay, Bo says, to clarify, I wasn't making an argument to have more kids. I was just taking it at face value, what was said in that comment, and I thought it was good to make a point.
Can we see Leon's comment below? Leon makes a funny comment here.
To you?
This one, yeah. Another argument that grinds my gears is I cannot adopt, and then they give absolutely no fucking reason as to why they can't adopt. Yeah.
But some people say it costs too much money, and I say, well, if you don't have enough, you know how much it costs to have a kid?
Yeah, if you don't have enough money to adopt, then you're not in a financially stable position to fucking raise a child.
And then people want to argue, well, you're saying only rich people can have kids. Well, no, what I'm trying to say is why bring another kid into poverty?
Yeah. It
You know?
just, again, it just shows
the only good thing I've heard against adopting humans is because it has become an industry, right? There's a lot of unethical stuff, and all the kids that you adopt aren't guaranteed to just be orphans for valid reasons, but because people kind of make money from making kids that others
Sure,
adopt.
I've heard
So
that too. Yeah.
there's problems with it, but in that case, it would be unethical. Like, it's still unethical to breed, right? That's not an excuse to breed. You could just adopt a non-human animal instead and take care of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are so many kids that genuinely do need
Yeah.
a home, and I see some of these people who try to do in what's it called when they try to the doctor tries to get them pregnant with their frozen sperm and stuff. I
IVF?
IVF, thank you. I
Yeah.
just couldn't think of it. And they'll spend tens of thousands of dollars trying to get pregnant over and over again. And I'm like, do you know what you could have done with that? Some people just aren't meant to have kids. Why is it such an important thing? It's part of your identity that you have to have a kid, that you would all this emotional turmoil of trying to do this over and over again, and all these tens of thousands of dollars you're spending on trying to have a kid when you could actually be helping a child out there in need. It's some people just aren't meant to have kids. It's
Mhm.
okay. I've never been pregnant, so and I'm okay with that. You know. So
Yeah, I think people find it hard to they find it very hard to accept that they will never have kids, and I don't think people keep saying this is another appeal to nature, Carnist style, right? People say I have a biological urge to procreate and stuff. Actually, I don't think people really do. I think it's more of a societal thing.
I think it's
Because once you understand the arguments against having kids, this supposed biological urge gets overridden. It's not like something like breathing. Like, if I wanted to stop breathing, I wouldn't be able to do it. I'll just go in the end. Like, that's you can't do it, right? But what I once did want to have kids, and now I don't, because I understand the arguments. It's a logical thing. It's not it's just selfishness. It's just people don't care about the arguments against procreation. It's nothing to do with their biology.
I think some people do have a very strong urge to have a biological child for some reason, because I know people who understand all the arguments, they agree with all of the arguments, but they still feel this urge to procreate for some reason, because it's just
But I would say that's just more their apathy to those arguments, because
no, because I know people who they won't have kids for ethical reasons. They are vegan, they are animal rights activists, so they understand all the arguments, they agree with all the arguments, they agree that it's immoral, but they still feel this very strong urge to have their own biological child. So I don't know where you would.
So you're talking about there are even some anti-natalists who think I would love.
Yeah, they still have this urge to have a biological child. It's just something they crave.
They'll get over it.
That's weird. Yeah. Got to say, it's not something I've experienced. Growing up, it was my main goal in life to be a father. That was just the greatest thing that I could possibly envisage. But then I came across anti-natalism, and it was just like, and I went vegan, and I just realized the human race was fucked up. And,
I personally have never had that desire. Like, I've never wanted to be a parent. I just like
and I did, and I
dedicating my life to taking care of someone else is just like, no. Why should I do that when I can just live my own life instead?
Yeah.
So
I did, and like I said, they'll get over it, because as the years went on, I got over it. But yeah, like I said, I've never been pregnant, so maybe it was just a sign that I could be okay with that. So
great comment here from Bo. Just pull up that last comment there from Bo, Stacey.
Yep.
they say instead of a biological urge, I see it more as an urge to conform for many. Go to school, get a career, get married, have kids. Yeah, this is my position, and I don't know if you agree with this, Deep. That I just think it's people just love to do what's normalized and what they're kind of pressured into and stuff. Like, I do find it strange, just this idea that we're just these. Yeah, I do find it strange, the biological urge argument, basically.
But I think it's more than that. I think what it stems from is the fear of being forgotten. I think that's their way of being immortal. Is having somebody that's part of your legacy, somebody they left behind, so you won't be forgotten.
Yes.
I think that's where the urge comes from, is the fear of being forgotten when you're dead.
Yeah, there's many reasons. Like, I agree that many people have, and that's a big reason why many want to be, because they want to fit in, they want to conform, and then there's that you value yourself so highly, so like, oh, I'm so good, I need to spread my genes, like my bloodline needs to continue because I wanted to. But I also think that different people have different inherent urges to have children. Me, for example, I've never had that desire, but then others, they have a very strong desire to. So I do think it's ingrained in our brain to some degree. Varies from person to person.
So I want to address what Rebecca's saying here. For women, not having kids is a mark of shame and considered taboo to not want kids. Nah, I don't feel that way. I mean, I have had people ask me, "Do you have any kids?" When I was younger. Of course, I don't get asked. I don't really get bothered too much now, but they would be like, "Do you have kids? Do you plan on having kids?" And when I said no, they would be like, "Why not?" They just didn't. They couldn't understand.
Yeah,
but a mark of shame. I remember one time my mom going off on me. I was in a long-term relationship, and she said, "When are you gonna have a kid?" And I was like, what the hell? Why is that so important? But she doesn't bother me about that anymore.
Yeah, even I think it's even the same for men, like, in a sense, is that because we get parental pressure and grandparental pressure. I think my parents are probably expecting grandkids from me, and they probably don't know yet. Maybe they've clocked that they're not going to get any. I think it would be quite upsetting for them, and I don't like that. I don't like the fact that I would be upsetting my parents probably by not procreating. That's the bit that hurts me about being an anti-natalist.
But again, it's not personal. It's not.
I know.
And a lot of people
my
take
view
it
is the
that
right
way.
one. Yeah, my view is the right one. I'm doing what's ethical, but I'm pretty sure it would upset my parents if they knew. And this is why I'm quite private about my anti-natalism. I don't really talk about it that much on Facebook, apart from in things like groups, private groups and stuff like that, because my family are on social media and stuff. And yeah, I wouldn't want them to know.
Who knows? Maybe one of these days you might end up adopting,
I wouldn't do that for the same reasons that Deep Vegan mentioned a moment ago, which is that I'd just be so there are the quote unquote selfish reasons, I guess, for me not wanting to adopt, which is that I'm living someone else's life. I want being a parent is a fucking huge job. Like, it's my friends who have kids, they don't get a time to like go to the toilet. It's crazy.
Personally, I get completely drained from spending 1 hour with my nephew. So it's nope, never gonna happen.
I'm not terribly good with kids, so I mean, I'll admit that
I don't have the energy for them. It's just so draining because they have so much energy and I have none. So it's like,
just get a puppy.
What were you saying about what were you saying about the reason you wouldn't? Another reason why you wouldn't have kids, George?
No, I think it was just that, like, the fact that I want to be able to spend my life dedicating it to activism and having as much free time as possible. Like, it just takes up your whole life. If you have a kid, you'll.
Mm.
I mean, I'm 32, and my parents, bless their hearts, they're still kind of looking after me now. Like when I go, they'll send me money if I'm in trouble, or when I
Yeah,
go home
and
to visit them, they're ferrying me around in the car places and
yeah,
stuff. It's like,
and
come
some
on.
people would look at that as selfishness in itself, but at least in that selfishness, you're not hurting anybody else.
Yeah.
Well, you could argue I'm hurting the kids who are in need of adoption or something, like, but it
Well,
might
no,
not
because
be.
nobody can force you to be a good parent. I mean, who wants a parent that resents them?
Yeah,
You know?
that's a very good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be a bad idea for me to adopt anyway, because I wouldn't be a good father anymore. Because the point is, I don't want some kid living in my house.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So, all right, everybody's been pretty respectful in this conversation. So, I don't know. Does anybody? I don't know if anybody wants to come on here. We don't. I don't know if. I think all comments should be going here, even from Facebook. Maybe. I don't know. This looks like it's just coming from YouTube. But I was going to say, if we're interested in having anybody come on with their thoughts, as long as they want to be respectful. If anybody wants to do that, should I share the?
Well, yeah, the thing is, we haven't had any natalists yet in the comment section. Everyone
Yeah, I
has
haven't
been in
seen
agreement with
any.
us.
So maybe maybe nobody wants to. I haven't seen. I don't know if I'm getting comments from Facebook or not. So I haven't seen the Facebook post, but
Yeah,
this looks
every
like the
logo has
usuals
a.
from YouTube. So
Yeah, every comment
Yeah.
I've seen has a little YouTube logo on it, so I think it's just coming from YouTube.
I don't know if there's anybody on Facebook watching this that is going against what we're saying, but so this it again being such a contentious subject in the vegan community, we got to wonder like what what is the what's the solution? I mean, does the world need to change, or do we need to learn how to cope with it? I mean,
Both.
and what are the best ways for us to cope with this? I mean,
Well, here's the thing. It's such a divisive issue among vegans that even though I tell people when I discuss my views with them about, look, I do see anti-natalism as a logical extension of veganism, and I see it as inconsistent to be a vegan and a pro-natalist. I don't think it's something that we should divide the movement over. I think it's more one of those things where, look, we need to stick together as a movement. We need as many vegans as possible. I don't really want to spend my time because there's certain issues, right, in the vegan community where we might consider something not vegan to do so, but I don't really want to spend my time dividing the movement over that and saying like you're not vegan because you do this. Like I have this little list of things actions that I think aren't vegan, but I don't say the person isn't vegan if they do, because I just say it's more of a gray area. Like this whole stuff like Impossible Burger, feeding animals to your carnivorous pets and stuff. I think these acts are not vegan, but I never say, and this is my view with anti-natalism as well. I don't really think procreation is vegan, to be honest, but I wouldn't say you're not vegan.
Yeah.
Even if your child turns out to be vegan, like giving birth is one of the absolute worst things you can do for environmental reasons, and harm to the environment causes harm to animals. So it's still like, because even as vegans, we still consume a lot of resources. We still have an impact on the planet. So you're just doubling your impact.
It just occurred to me that maybe the reason that vegans that have kids sometimes get so upset at anti-natalists is because what you just said, and it's kind of like telling a meat eater what they're doing is bad, and they get defensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
and the arguments just do all sound the same, to be honest. Even the expense one we talked about with adoption, people say veganism is expensive.
Yeah.
Say adoption is
I didn't even think about that. But yeah.
Having a kid is expensive.
Yeah. I mean, just school alone, to put them through school alone is expensive. That's another thing I thought was crazy when I learned how much it costs for baby clothes and how often you have to buy new clothes. Forget about it.
Yeah.
There's no way I can't afford that. Somebody's not going to be eaten.
Brad has a question in the comments.
Brad.
That one from Brad.
Okay.
Do you see procreation in this day and age as a form of climate denial? I wouldn't say it's a form of climate denial. I would just say it's a form of climate apathy, if anything.
I don't understand how anyone who cares like about the quality of their children's life could choose to give birth, because the way I see it, like we don't, if we continue the way we're doing as as humans, there won't be much of a future left. Like it's just going to go downhill from here. It's just going to get worse. There's going to be more environmental catastrophes. It's just the living quality is just going to go down. So if you're breeding now, you are forcing a kid to deal with all of those consequences, and they're probably going to suffer a lot from it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I became an anti-natalist before I was even vegan, and that's how I used to feel. Like even back in my 20s, I was like, I wouldn't want to bring a kid into this world, and that was
No.
over 20 years ago. And things haven't gotten better. So yeah, it's just, but and here we are all misanthropes, but George, here we are wanting to go back to a vegan camp out.
Absolutely. No,
So,
I love,
isn't that kind of contradictory for us? I mean, so I guess maybe it just goes to show the levels of
well, let me describe my sort of weird misanthropy.
Sure.
I hate the human race, but I don't go around sort of despising people on an individual level. Even when I'm talking to people in the street, I'm like polite to them and I'm kind to people, and I still see it as good to, I hang around with non-vegans and my family are non-vegan and I love them. It's just a hatred of what we've done collectively as a species. It's not really this sort of personal thing, like I'm speaking to someone and I'm like, I fucking despise you.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's misunderstood by people.
Yeah. It's a strange form of hatred. But even thing is with the vegan camp out though, I mean, you are surrounded there, but at least by people who share your views on a lot of stuff. So it's it's not the same as me going to some random non-vegan festival.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I was just teasing.
Personally,
I would like to go to it myself, except for I'm not sure how good I am at camping. I haven't done that for a while.
Oh, it's more glamping than camping. Don't worry. There's like buildings with showers and toilets and stuff, and there's music acts indoors and speeches and stuff. It's more glamping.
Kind of like Lollapalooza in the end.
Yeah, that's it. There was a comment, a question that would be good to discuss actually from Rebecca, I think it was. I just saw.
Let me find it.
About pro-life. It might be quite up a bit.
Ooh, now. I don't know. I don't know. I was avoiding that one.
Yeah, well, but hey, we're here to tackle controversial comments.
We've done good so far. I am on the fence, and I've told people this before. I've never been pregnant. I've never had to make that decision. And I'm too old for it now, so I don't really know if it's any of my business. I am on the fence, whereas I think that a woman should have a right to her own bodily autonomy. And then at the same time, I have known some people that were just irresponsible and used that as a solution. So that's a hard subject, and one I usually avoid simply because it doesn't affect me, and there's nothing I can do about it where it affects others.
My view is that, so I'm not pro-choice. I have two positions on abortion. I take the anti-natalist pro-death position before sentience, which means that I think it's immoral to allow sentience to develop. And I think we are actually obliged to abort before sentience develops, because sentience is the worst thing that ever happened to our species. So it's cruel to allow someone to develop sentience. But I think once they are sentient, then it's inconsistent to abort at that stage, because that's like just aborting a 2-year-old child, in my opinion. That's my view on it.
Yeah, for me, it's I'm pretty much like pro-abortion too. I think all babies should be aborted, before they develop sentience, because once they develop sentience and they can feel pain and whatever, obviously there's there's ethical problems with it. But
Yes.
I'm still like, I still think, like, despite that, that abortion is still the best thing, because the consequences of giving birth to that human and all the harm that human is going to cause is much worse. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's
So
my
our views are
stance.
very similar then, Deep, on this, if not.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, that's
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and I can understand those views. I might have, similar thoughts. I just didn't put it that way. But yeah, like I said, since I'm 52, I don't really like
Hmm.
concern myself with it too
So
much.
Leon
But I
says,
do feel like whether you're pro-choice or not, you have a responsibility if you have an opinion on that to be vegan.
yeah,
You know.
because I'm just seeing Leon's comment there in the comment section, just saying, "Not my body, not my shit to choose and whatnot." I respectfully disagree with that, just because I don't think abortion is the matter of the mother's body. I think it's a matter of the child's body. It's someone else's body. Women don't have 2 heads, 4 arms, 4 legs, right? So for me, it's the question of the ethical responsibility towards the child. Before they're sentient, we should abort them, and after sentience, in my opinion, then it's too late. And that's my nuanced view on it.
I have a bit of a different view, because I still see, like, obviously there are ethical problems with aborting the baby, but I still think that at any stage, the woman has a right to abort them, because I basically see a fetus is basically a parasite, right? It is completely dependent on your body.
But it's a parasite that they created,
Yeah,
unless,
yeah,
of
yeah.
course, it was forced.
Unless it was
Which that's a
unintentional,
tricky
like,
situation
yeah.
too. If it
So
was
like,
forced upon them.
if
I'll
you
tell you what.
intentionally get pregnant and then intentionally abort, like, that's fucked up, obviously, because
Yeah, I'll tell you why I've never agreed with the parasite analogy. It's because, well, first, parasites are a foreign invader. They're not your own flesh and blood, whereas a child is your own creation, right? But the other
Yeah.
thing is, it's only ever called a parasite when the woman doesn't want the child. Like, no one ever said, like, if you met a pregnant woman who is really happy and, hey, we're expecting Emily any week soon, I'm so excited, and you say, Emily is a fucking parasite.
I mean,
Kill that little
no,
bastard.
no
Like,
hate to
That
the
would be going
child.
back to the anti-natalist reasons.
Yeah.
No hate to the child, but like, as I see it, what I define as a parasite, it's still a parasite, because it is something that is completely living off of your body. Like, it can't sustain itself on its own.
But
So
that's true of born children as well. A 2-year-old child, like, lock a child in a house by their own. Watch what happens. They'll die. Their children are completely dependent on their
yeah,
parents' bodies after birth.
well, not on their bodies, but on their support.
Yeah, so they're parasites
yeah.
in that sense. I don't. The point is they're completely dependent on someone else. Someone else has to work there, and even still on their bodies, because mothers breastfeed. I still see it as a bodily thing, even after birth.
No, I don't really agree with that definition of
Okay,
parasite,
guys, you know
because,
what? I
but
wasn't
yeah,
really comfortable with this
Well, as I say,
subject.
I don't think they're parasites at all.
okay.
Yeah.
But you know what? We've been on here for a little over an hour, and I think this has been a really, really nice conversation to have. Everybody's been really respectful in the comments that I could see. Um, Bo, thank you so much, and everybody who has participated in this.
But,
Um,
yeah.
I think it's a conversation that people get really heated up about usually, but I think it's conversations that need to be had. Sorry, need to be had. What were you going to say, Deep Vegan?
Uh, yeah, what was I gonna say? I forgot.
You
Fuck.
did it again. That's okay.
I'll probably remember in a second.
Yeah. So we pretty much covered every. And is there anything else you guys think that needs to be covered?
Oh wait,
Or any
what I was
concluding?
gonna say is, what I can use to support, my stance. Like, even if, the fetus has developed sentience, I still think it's a better choice to abort. I mean, obviously, it's the earlier the better. But like, I can apply the golden rule. If like, I would rather have been like aborted at a late stage, if I could, if I can choose now. Obviously, if I'm the fetus, I don't want to be aborted. They don't really want anything, but if I could choose between having been aborted at a late stage or being forced into existence, I would still prefer to be aborted. So
I don't know if you could really say you know that for a fact. I mean, it's pretty brutal
I
from
would
what I
I would
understand.
think that
Yeah, the thing
would
is,
have been the better option.
yeah,
But
but I guess you would choose that for yourself. The problem with humanity, though, is most people very much value their own life and would not wish that on themselves.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
they think it was a miracle that they were born. Whereas we obviously don't see it like that. And Stacey, the only point I wanted to make before we end is just to tell everyone to read Better Never to Have Been by David Benatar. So please check out that book for a fascinating insight into, he's basically the father of modern anti-natalist philosophy. I think he coined the term possibly anti-natalism, and he's a very, very, very skilled philosopher. He's the head lecturer at the University of Cape Town, I think, of philosophy. So yes, read that book, Better Never to Have
I
Been.
tell you what, I'll put that link underneath this video when it posts, as well as that article on philosophical misanthropy, and a couple of interesting anti-natalism groups I thought were interesting. I'll put links to those too. So, but guys, it's been great. Thank you so much. I thought that you two would be the best to have a rational discussion on this, and I think I was right.
Thank you for having us.
And I really, really do appreciate you talking about this with me. Uh, so anyway, however you guys feel about these two topics, again, I think it's an important one. I don't think it's necessarily a vegan one. It just might I don't know, amongst the vegan community, just seems a little bit more contentious at times.
Yeah.
So maybe
There are a
we
lot
do
of
need to hash these
topics
things
like
out a
that.
little bit more and be understood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, all right, everybody, I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you all for being here. Thank you again to my guests, and we'll see you
Thank
next
you.
time.
Bye.